In Pakistan, one of the poorest nations in South Asia, more than 1 out of 3 children under 5 years old do not have equal access to nutrition at home compared with at least one other sibling.
40% of these multidimensionally poor that we describe in this report happen to be children. And what the report also shows is that children are disproportionately affected by poverty. And that explains also why in some households you may have a child that is malnourished and their sibling is not malnourished.
Apart from nutrition, the multidimensional poverty index also looks at child mortality rates, schooling and access to basic necessities like fuel, sanitation, drinking water and electricity to provide a more comprehensive measure of extreme poverty beyond just income levels.
Consider 2 households, both of which are non-income poor, so they make enough money to move them above the poverty line, whether it's a national poverty line or a national poverty line. But whether they are linked to an electricity grid, to water mains, to sewage systems, makes a huge difference in people's life, and that's not captured by the level of income.
To put it simply, the index measures extreme poverty based more on what a person or family needs rather than what they earn. By using these expanded metrics to measure extreme poverty, the UN Development Programme and its partners hope to show how people experience the lack of access to basic necessities and the vast inequalities among nations. But they also hope to make the case that our traditional concepts of rich and poor nations has been an oversimplification, and an outdated one at that. South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa remain the poorest regions, with poverty levels highest in South Sudan, Niger, Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh. But surprisingly, 2/3 of the world's poorest people, more than 886 million, live in middle-income countries rather than in lower-income nations.
These poor people, and this is what the report shows, live amongst us. They live amongst us in our countries. They live amongst us in our communities, and they live even amongst us in our families and households.
UNDP hopes the more in-depth and comprehensive data can provide a clearer picture of how people experience poverty to help nations guide policy towards ending it. Li Ling Tan, CGTN at the United Nations.